Hello and you're very welcome to another GMI podcast. I'm John Mann. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by McGourty.com and Atak.ie. Use the promo code GMI podcast to get 15% off on McGourty.com. Like the best skins, gloves, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. And if you like what you're seeing, like and subscribe to YouTube. The sport's been absolutely brilliant so far. We're making new waves on the GMI podcast today. This is our live preview show of the Cavan and Antrim game. We're going to be live now and then live later on at the halftime show and the full-time show later on. So it's breaking new waves all the time, Kevin. So delighted to have you on board. Here we go. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, John, I suppose the championship is really setting off. Obviously, we've seen the hurling championship start last week with the football championship and foreign pastures, if we want to put it that way. So this weekend it comes to home soil. And the Ulster Championship really kicks in now into the quarterfinal stage. Obviously, other people and other podcasts will cover what's happening in out west or in Leinster or Munster over the next couple of weeks. But our primary focus here is obviously Ulster, and today for Antrim and Cavan, it's a massive day for them and a chance. But both teams will be getting into the game thinking that they have a realistic chance of progressing into the semi-final of an Ulster Championship.
Definitely. And I just see the Ulster.ie tweeted, supporters attending Antrim v Cavan today. No cash sales at the venue. All tickets purchased in advance online and on selected stores. Download your ticket well in advance and all patrons require a ticket. Get yours here on Ulster.ie. I hope they don't run out of programmes, because they ran out of programmes in Enniskillen last night, Kev.
Yeah, well, let's hope not. There's been enough catastrophe around this match and enough controversy around it. And I suppose, John, that's a very good place for us to start. Today is, obviously it's a quarterfinal of an Ulster Championship. A lot of lads making their debuts from both teams. It's this is what the lads have been training for from maybe post-Christmas last year. It's getting into an Ulster Championship like this and, the big day. And look, I don't know what it's like over there, over here in Edinburgh. It's a cracking day. It seems an ideal day for football. Hopefully it's the same in West Belfast. But as I say, the game was marred in many ways by lots of different stuff. And maybe just touching that for a minute, we talked about the whole issue of Corrigan Park, its suitability, and obviously the issues that Cavan then brought forward to the Ulster Council. We see, as you've just read out on Twitter, the Ulster Council haven't sold out this game. Again, I'll come on to that in a second. But, that's a big motivating factor for Antrim coming into the game, is the way that the narrative around this game has been approached over the last 3-4 months, the boardroom issues. And if Antrim aren't psychologically up for this game, if they're not using that as a motivating factor, then there'd be something wrong there. I just thought this has been handled all wrongly. Did I think Corrigan Park was the ideal venue? Absolutely not. I'd said to you on previous podcasts that I had safety issues, particularly about players and referees getting in and out of the changing area without interference from supporters. There's obviously parking issues. There's issues with regards disability access. Again, media coverage, all of that. But people know better than me. A safety certificate has been issued. That should have been all that was really in play here. I think the Ulster Council attacked this wrongly. I think they put other counties in a very, very difficult situation in terms of having to vote on this. And I think that the other counties who did vote against Antrim on this, shame on them. Eventually, common sense has prevailed. Antrim are getting their shot today. And, they fought long and hard for this. There's been enough paper headlines written about it, enough media coverage. Time for talking is done. Use this as a motivating factor coming in. I suppose the last issue I'll say about, John, the fixture overall is, one of the narratives around Corrigan Park was there wouldn't be enough space for the required attendance. We're seeing today that possibly, I know last night the tickets were still available online and through the channels that Ulster.ie has tweeted about today. The ground, I think, only has a capacity of 3,000, 3,500, something in that round.
3,000, yeah.
3,000. So we have to ask ourselves the question, why hasn't this been sold out? One, has it been marketed properly? I'm
TV,
not sure.
The fact it's on TV, no.
Well, I was just going to mention that, John. Two, the fact that BBC occupied 6 counties are covering the game. But three, we'll have to look at the timing of the match. And we have to understand that we live in an economy now that's churning 24/7, 365 a year. People have to work on a Saturday now. You know, fathers who maybe want to take their kids to games, you know, things like that. Is the timing good? You know I would know BBC Northern Ireland pretty well. Sorry, BBC occupied 6 counties. Very well. Call it out. And I know that they would probably have a lot of camera crews at football games today, soccer games across the north. I would also know that they're probably covering a lot of them games on a live radio program. You know, having that resource later on this evening probably would have been better for them, where the game was at 6, 7 o'clock. It would have let families come out. It would have let, you know, people who are working today maybe to bring their kids to the game. So people traveling up from Cavan, if they are going to the game, it's a very early start this morning for them to get up in around West Belfast for a 2 o'clock throw-in. So, you know, all these things come into play. I just think the scheduling was totally wrong. I think the game, you know, the light comes down now maybe 7:15, 7:45 in the evenings. Yes, bearing in mind extra time, possible penalties. You know, maybe a 6 o'clock throw-in would have been better for everybody. But, you know, who am I to question that? But it's quite unfortunate that we have an Ulster Championship game for the first time ever that isn't sold out in around 3,000. That's crazy.
No, it definitely is interesting. I suppose the 2 o'clock throw-in time, Kev, as well. Like, it could just be trial and error from like the GAA, the Ulster Council. You know, we'll see how it goes, kind of thing. And like, this is probably the first year ever where we've had such a game on so early on a Saturday, and maybe gives people a chance to attack the day after. But it definitely is trial and error. And look, Kev, it's like anything else. If it doesn't work, change it again. If it does work, you know, we'll see what happens, Kev.
No, it's John. I'm going to be blunt. It's not trial and error, it's lunacy. Because Saturday afternoon, you know yourself, people are involved in, you know, shopping with their kids or out in family days or, as I say, working. But also, you know, you're competing with other sports. You know, rugby's on today and around that time. You've got the Premiership and football on, you know. So you have to understand your place within the market. And for me, that would have been a decent Saturday evening game. Unfortunately, we don't have lights at Corrigan. But certainly if this game was, say, Tyrone Fermanagh, like it was last week, a Saturday evening game under the lights would have been good. So,
why like, I look at it, don't want to read into it too much, like there's bigger fish to fry. But like, how come 6 o'clock last Saturday and 2 o'clock this Saturday? Why? Or
I suppose them issues there, you've got to take into account there could be extra time, there could be penalties. Brewster Park does have lights, whereas Casement doesn't. It would be a bit of an embarrassment if you're having a live TV game and then you have to go to a replay because there isn't lights. So you've got to factor. I understand you've got to factor in all these issues, but you know, possibly even 5:30 this evening, the light would have been there to conclude the game this evening. I just think when you have to know your place in the market, and certainly Saturday afternoon, you know, 2 o'clock or 2:30 or 3 o'clock is not where the GA is at, unfortunately. You've got so many other things going on. If you want to maximize attendance at matches or want to maximize your TV audience, it's got to be in the evenings or then that prime Sunday afternoon slot that has been traditionally there for years.
And it's not fair either, Kev, because it's an expensive week for Cavan fans. We had the Cavan game last night, you know, this at 2 o'clock and then the one at 6 o'clock, so in the minor. So it's not fair, Kev.
No, I suppose Cavan people have plenty of communion money to spend, so maybe best off doing it this weekend than any other weekend. So no, I mean, obviously last night, you know, it's good for Cavan that their 20s went very well. Very unfortunate not to win last night, but you know, they'll be travelling up to Casement today as a senior panel.
Corrigan
today, but the trajectory is very much on an upward curve. They've that bit of confidence, you know, after being inside Croke Park and winning a nip-tuck game with Tipperary. So, you know, Cavan football maybe get a bit of a bounce this weekend if Cavan win today. Hopefully not, but it might.
We'll wait and see. So I suppose kind of cracking into some of the action ahead of the game. And obviously, unfortunately, both our kind of PROs or county boards don't like releasing teams early. Every other county nearly does. Cavan's probably going to release their team now, probably in an hour or two, much like Antrim would say, Kev. So we can only really read from the league final, the match programme from the league final in front of me. So it was a strong kind of team, and obviously a bit of experimenting going on the forward line and half forward line, full forward line. I think the back line will probably be as per programme. But, you know, looking at the Cavan team, you know, what players are going to affect that Antrim team today, Kev, do you reckon?
Well, obviously you're looking at obviously, if we start from the back, you know, Galligan in goal. Big issue around Galligan in goal is this: he's not on form at the minute from his long range frees. I don't know if Cavan are going to change that up at the minute, especially in the final against Tipperary. He missed 3 or 4 in a crucial period in the second half, and they didn't change it up. So, you know, there's no doubting of his ability. The guy's an all-star. He's, you know, I suppose his defence are very, very confident in him. There's no issues in around his goalkeeping or his kickouts presently that would bother me. It's his long range shooting off the ground from frees that, you know, coming into this game where he's been so consistent over the last 2-3 years, he's just hit a blip there. But his kickouts today is going to be, you know, I think the one thing in this championship that's really going to, throughout all the games that I'm really looking forward to see, is kick-out strategies from teams. Will they press up or will they sit back? You know, we've seen that in Croke Park over the finals weekend, whether it be what happened in the Kerry Mayo game or alternatively what happened then with Mickey Hart's live sitting off, you know, their opponents that day, Limerick, and then bottling them up. So kick-out strategy is going to be key throughout the championship, but particularly today, are Antrim going to press Raymond Gallagher's kick-out and force him to go long, or are they going to, you know, press up on his kick? Or sorry, are they going to sit back and give Cavan primary possession? As opposed to full back line, what I would say here is, when we come talk about Antrim, the dainty inside forwards, very quick. You know, the likes of Ryan Murray, the likes of Tomas McCann, the likes of young Jamie Gribben, who'll probably be making his championship debut at some stage today. You know, Orne Eastwood as well. So Antrim, Cavan full back line's got to be very wary of that. And you're looking at, you know, Pádraig Faulkner's a big enough lad in there at full back. You know, Luke Fortune as well. You're looking at them too. The matchups are going to be key there in the Cavan full back line. Who picks up who? You know, obviously, the one thing I would say about Luke Fortune and Jason McLaughlin in particular is they like to go forward, you know, and that'll be a big issue. The Antrim, whilst their first duty is to defend, the Antrim forwards have also got to be worried that these guys can get up the park and they like kicking a point or two. In terms of Conor Moyne, I spoke to you. You spoke to me off air about him. Conor Moyne is very good going forward. You know, he can kick a ball with the outside of his foot again, like McLaughlin and Fortune. He likes to keep the scoreboard ticking. But his issue will be, you know, cementing up that defence, playing that pivotal role at 6. Will he drop off his man and drop in to protect Pádraig Faulkner? Which in a way might suit Antrim because the likes of Mick McCann, Conor Murray in particular, Patrick McBride if he's playing, coming up from deep. You know, these guys can pick off points from distance. So, you know, that'll be interesting to see if Conor Moyne drops back in or he pushes up on his man. I suppose then the middle of the park.
But the middle of the park could probably change around. Like as I said, asking you, like the full back line, half back line, I can't see change. But I think when you move away from the back line, I think we could see a couple of changes. But that midfield line, you know, Cillian Clark, it's hard to know. Like his number 6 position, he's very good at that. And I think midfield, he can be kind of lost there. But midfield, it'll be interesting to see that same midfield starts, Kev.
Absolutely, and the thing I was just going to say to you about Cillian Clark is he can play centre half back, he can play full back if Cavan have problems in there. So, you know, he's a competent enough player. The one big unknown for me in this game, from a Cavan point of view, is regardless of anybody making their championship debut, you know, because they're always going to be an unknown and they're going to be up for the game and, you know, whatever else, and you can't really temper or understand, you know, what impact they're going to have. The guy that we can understand and the guy that, you know, today is really going to be my man to watch is Thomas Galligan.
Tommy Galligan, yeah.
Tommy Galligan's playing wing half forward. You know, Raymond will try and kick some ball down his throat and see early on what he's up to. You know, if Antrim are playing somebody like Patrick McBride or Paddy McAleer or somebody like that at wing half back, Galligan's obviously going to be, you know, 6 or 8 inches taller than him. You know, there's going to be an obvious advantage there. But the other issue might be tactically, Cavan might play a 3 across the middle. Galligan might play, you know, in around the middle as a third midfielder. But the great unknown for him is he hasn't hit the heights of 2 years ago. He was incredible 2 years ago for Cavan. He was so vital. In fact, he was the most vital cog in their wheel, in my opinion, for them winning that Ulster Championship and getting so far in the Championship. And that was recognised, you know. But he hasn't really hit the heights. And, you know, maybe second, third year syndrome, who knows? But that if Cavan are to win today, Thomas Gallagher is going to have to influence this game, because throughout Division 4, I've spoke to you about it, he hasn't really been that influential. And you know, we're going to need to see that if he does play today and where he does play. So it's going to be important for him to put a stamp on the game. I think he'll play in around the middle, because I think that's where he's most effective. If Cavan are in trouble, they've always got the option to throw him in full forward and lump a ball or two in there to him. They can also throw Groyd McKiernan in and play in there as sort of a twin towers inside, if you want to put it that way. So it's going to be very interesting to see where he plays today. Moving forward, I want to focus a wee bit about Groyd McKiernan. I spoke to you a fortnight ago about this game when we were previewing different things, previewing in the league finals. Groyd McKiernan has been absolutely instrumental. He's been the heartbeat of Cavan this year. You know, I talked to you and I keep on going back to it. Struggling a wee bit down Sligo, 8-4 down, big league game, 3 games out from the end of the league. You know, if they'd have lost that game, you know, Cavan were faced into a tricky situation at the end of the league. 8-4 down, he steps up, I think it was for 3 points in a row. He shows that leadership. Throughout the league, he's been constantly taking over the scoreboard. At centre half forward, he can win you primary possession from kickouts. He has the ability to bring other people into the game with his accurate foot passing. He's excellent from frees normally. And again, he's that ability to boss a game, and if he wants to, score a goal. He's that powerful of a player. So on the one hand, I'm talking about Thomas Gallagher influencing the game. If Antrim, on the other hand, I'm talking about Groyd McKiernan and how much of an influence he's been this year. If Antrim have any hope today, they have to try and neutralise as much as possible Groyd McKiernan, because he's been that influential. Moving on from that, McKiernan has been overly influential, but we mustn't forget that Patrick Lynch has given that new bit of spice that you need every year to a team. And I think he came in last year, but realistically this year his performances have been again really consistent, hitting the back of the net. I think he scored 1-2 in the league final, possibly 2-3, sorry, in the league final. He's been taking over the scoreboard in all the games, you know, and that axis of Groyd McKiernan getting the ball, win the ball, and his ability to play quick early ball into Patrick Lynch, who, as we've seen, he's a tall enough, broad enough lad, but he's quite sharp on his feet, and he can shoot and he can score, and he knows where the goals are. So that's a huge threat to Antrim. And that axis of McKiernan and Lynch between the 40 and the inside forward line, that's going to be key today. And if that works for Cavan will win this game. If Antrim can somehow have tactics to nullify that quick ball in, to nullify Lynch, and to a degree McKiernan's influence in the game, then Antrim are in with a real shout. The other thing I'll say about Cavan is they've 1 or 2 experienced boys in the bench to come in who have lots of experience in the Ulster Championship. Spoke often about Martin Riley, the influence he can bring. He's a dog, and I mean that in the best possible way. You know, he's up and down that park for his age, the fitness the guy's had. You know, he can turn over ball, he can score. You know, he's inspirational. He gives that energy that people need. So I would expect to see him at a certain time in the game, maybe early in the second half. You know, coming on there, if Cavan need that boost, he will bring energy. He will bring, you know, work rate to the team. As I say, he's that ability to score, which you've seen previously in the league and indeed the Ulster Championship, and his ability to get a goal as well. You know, so that could be a talking point. But you know, Cavan come here today on the trajectory. Come to Belfast today on the trajectory. It's upward. You know, last year was a very poor year for them. In fairness, they've regrouped. You know, as I say, people like Lynch have come into the team. Again, people like Conor Madden have a decent work rate. You know, they've changed things up ever so slightly. My big worry is what Thomas Gallagher can produce for me today, how much Groyd McKiernan can influence this game, and if things don't work out, the changes that Mickey Graham, Shawnee Johnson, and Ryan McMenamin make on the sideline could be key.
Yeah, and like, I suppose obviously you're talking about the impact subs, and I really would be kind of looking at Martin Riley kind of come off the bench, and I suppose in the games in the middle pot, you have Thomas Edward Donoghue, you have Conor Brady from Cavan, you have maybe Niall Murray, you have Cormac Riley from Mullahoran. So the bench is actually pretty strong, Kevin, if you know, if shit is hitting the fan, for want of a better phrase. But we did talk about Conor Madden in the Croke Park, you know, against Tipperary. We were 4-on-2. He opts, and I was saying this during the week, he opts to shoot with his left foot. He should have been burying the ball over the bar. He should have been giving it off to another lad. Tipperary go up down around the field and hit the crossbar, Kev. So you can't be at that today.
No, and that particular incident with Madden, you know, call me harsh. Every manager's different, or every coach is different. He wouldn't have played for me for the rest of the season. You know, the game was in the melting pot. He was greedy. Great story the other year, wasn't it? Aidan Fogarty, the Kilkenny forward, same club as Brian Cody, James Stevens. You know, league final, very selfish, very greedy. Turns up for training for the rest of the season. Cody doesn't play him. You know. He speaks to him about, you know, the emphasis on team. And then I think the following year, Fogarty is player of the year, you know. And Conor Madden, this is what coaches need to do at the top level of the game. It's already at club level. When you get the inter-county level, you're not looking about a boy's fitness or physical condition. That's part and parcel of the game. The most important thing is taking the right options, thinking about the game, playing the game with your brain. And there, Conor Madden, left in a 4-on-2 situation, totally selfish, head down, where the best option was to lay the ball off. Today, there will be no hiding place from that. And if he doesn't take the right option, I would expect Mickey Graham to replace him. You mentioned one or two other names there I'd like to touch on. Bit like Thomas Galligan, Thomas Edward O'Donoghue's a wee bit of a mystery to me. Seen him play for Pat's Cavan when they won the McGourty Cup. Excellent footballer. Lots of ability, lots of potential. But my issue with him is, you know, schools football's one thing, under 20s football's another thing, making that difference at senior level. I have no doubt in the kid's ability, but, you know, he's now going to have to produce it inside the Ulster Championship for me, because he's got lots of ability. Niall Murray's a guy I played with at UCD. He's a very competent footballer. He can play wing back for you. He can play wing forward for you. Again, very much like
been there a long time.
Yeah, he's very experienced, bit like Martin Riley. He's been around a while, but also, you know, he's great work rate now. He's a great team player. So again, you know, somebody like him coming off the bench, maybe 15, 20 minutes to go, he can kick you a score. Again, going through that work rate that's needed, because there's no doubts today. There's going to be I would expect to see a really high intensity to this game.
There we go. So, I suppose if you were to kind of pick 2 or 3 players from the Cavan point of view that can, I suppose, get Cavan over the line, Kev, who would they be?
Well, obviously, you know, I touched on it there, that axis of Groyd, McKiernan and Lynch. I would certainly expect my own clubmate, Sean Kelly, who's in the Antrim backroom team and maybe was a great defender himself, to have some sort of plan for them too. But McKiernan and Lynch, certainly that axis will be very, very key to the game. Thomas Galligan in around the middle of the park and the ability to win primary ball. So them 3. I'm also going to pick Luke Fortune, because not for his ability to get up the park and score, but his man marking ability there. If he does line at a cornerback, it's going to be key. You know, I would expect him maybe to pick up Tomas McCann, who I would see as Antrim's big danger man outside of maybe Ryan Murray. So, you know, their matchups at the back will be key. And if anything else, just for an aside for people to watch, is let's see how Raymond Galligan gets on with them 45, 50-yard shots, because in the modern game, when we're looking at counties like Tyrone, Niall Morgan kicking a huge percentage of them, you know, or, you know, Rob Henley kicking a considerable percentage from Mayo, you know, you need to be kicking when you're giving them opportunities, you've got to be punishing the opposition. Let's see how he gets on with them today as an aside.
Last thing on it from a Cavan point of view, Kev, Mickey Graham, obviously he was in attendance at the under-20 Ulster final yesterday evening, and then the Skillen. Good bit of pressure on him, Kev, really. I know obviously the Ulster Championship win in 2020, but really when you look at it, a couple of back-to-back relegations, Kev, so there is a bit of pressure on Mickey today to go out and get the win. Yeah,
well, when you look at it in the round, let's be fair to Mickey on a number of issues. Yes, he has back-to-back relegations, but, you know, my own club won eight or 9 championships in a row, and in that period we didn't win leagues. Nobody's worried about really the league. Yes, you get a better quality of game, and he went out when nobody expected him, and they won an Ulster Championship. And, you know, that will live long in the memory for Cavan people, because nobody expected that. You know, Mickey maybe was under a bit of pressure till the end of last year, but in fairness, he changed things up. He's brought Shawnee Johnson in, he's brought Ryan McMenamin in. His big aim this year was to get out of Division 4 and possibly get a bit of a run in the Championship. And, you know, if they win today, you know, the thing about Cavan is they're a very, very unpredictable team, as we seen 2 years ago. And they'll give anybody a game. And all of a sudden you win today, you're in an Ulster semi-final, and you're only one game away from an Ulster final. So, look, it has been a bit of a mixed bag, but I think that, you know, fairness to Mickey, he brought them an Ulster Championship that nobody foreseen. And the second thing is, when changes needed to be made after last year, you know, he got ruthless. He changed up the backroom team, and, you know, anything after getting out of Division 4 and winning that division is going to be a bonus for Cavan this year, with all due respect. I think the one thing Mickey will be doing is trying to get a couple of wins in the Championship, but really looking about how he can get them out of Division 3 next year, and up again into the, as I would call it, the All-Ireland Senior Championship.
Yeah, realistically. So good stuff. Moving on to the Antrim side of things. Obviously, Antrim going to be in big preparation for this game. We see your clubmate, Chris Kerr, has been called back into the Antrim setup, so he's delighted with that. He's the man between the sticks. So the Antrim point of view, what can we see, you know, causing Cavan a few problems today? You've obviously Mick McCann in midfield, still going strong. The Murray's inside, Mr. Eastwood as well. So Kev, are you confident heading into this game?
I'm very confident about our midfield up. I'm very, you know, we have very talented players there. Obviously, you said Mick. You know, Mick is incredibly gifted player. You know, he'll not get it easy today, especially if Thomas Gallagher's in there roaming about. But Mick's very good on the ball. Again, what sets him apart is he 90% of the time he makes the right decision on the ball. He can get you forward and score. You know, he's very good at winning primary possession from kickouts. You know, and he's good for the younger lads in this team to talk them through it. You know, obviously, young McCann from Cragan has come in this last couple of years, a very good free taker off the ground as well. He'll be in around the middle. And then when we look up front, Antrim have a lot of good players. The problem is they're not physically overly big. Conor Murray at wing half forward is somebody we're going to talk about in a minute. You know, he is he's been really on top form during the league. He can kick you points. He's a decent work rate. He can create goal chances for you. His brother Ryan is another very, very talented player. Excellent score getter. I know that he's been away in Dubai for a couple of weeks just there after the end of the league. So whether they put him in for the start or not, I'm not sure. Tomas McCann, again, hugely gifted footballer. Very much like, I suppose, if we're comparing it to a Cavan team, very similar to a Lynch or a Thomas Edward O'Donoghue. Has that ability to get a goal at any stage, to sidestep 2 or 3 men. He's a great finisher, a natural finisher. So again, he'll be somebody to watch up front. Oran Eastwood, again, is an unknown quantity. I've said in the past, you know, I just think Oran's physical ability is a big problem for him. And that might be a big issue for Antrim, is their physical ability up front to win primary possession, because most of their forwards are very much of the smaller stature. At the back, be interesting to see Antrim's kickouts. I believe that McBurn is going to be making his championship debut today. He was the sub-keeper for most of the league, came in for the last couple of games. Ross, a fella, very, very, from the O'Donovan Rossa Club, very capable goalkeeper, has played underage for Antrim. So today is a big day for him. Sorry, I should have mentioned the forwards as well. Antrim have 2 young lads there. Pat Shivers, who's a lot of potential, big enough fella, and a young lad, Jamie Gribben, both of them from the Aaron's Own club in Corrigan. Both of them have huge potential. This is their first year, and it would be really good to see, you know, them get the full potential out of themselves today. McBurn makes his debut as well, and again, be interesting to see the tactical game there on his kickouts. Is he going to go long, or Cavan let him go long, or Cavan going to let them go short? The big issue for me is Antrim's defence, and I don't know if Antrim have the personnel, with all due respect, to hold that Cavan forward line. In the last couple of days, whether reports are believed or not, Ricky Johnson, who is a very steady defender, big physical lad too, Ricky, and very capable footballer. He is not in the panel anymore. He's maybe gone stateside, I'm hearing. So that's a big void at full back. My understanding is that Declan Lynch from Lavjarg is going to go in there. Again, Declan played most of his football in around centre-half back over the last couple of years. He's not as physically big as Ricky. His speed would be an issue in there against somebody like Lynch as well, who's quite nifty on his feet. And it's going to be interesting to see how Antrim's set up in terms of, is the centre-back going to drop in there for a sweeper? The other issues as well for Antrim are other two wing half-backs. How are they going to play? Are they going to push forward? Patrick McBride's a guy who likes to play on the front foot. He's probably better off playing wing half forward. If he is playing wing half back today, my big issue would be he's not overly a great man marker or looking after his man. So, it's all about how Antrim set up defensively. Suppose the last point I'm going to make here is I think Aidan McGinley's a big call. Who's going to shadow Geroid McKernan? And that is going to be absolutely key. Now, from an Antrim perspective, it's all easy for us to say because we're sitting in a room watching a game, or we're at the game, we're in the stadium watching a game. Aidan McGinley has had 4 or 5 weeks to assess Cavan. He's probably got to look at them at Croke Park, 2-3 weeks ago. He now knows about that access of Lynch, of McKernan, and he's probably had a time to think about, how am I going to stop this guy McKernan? How am I going to limit him? Because I suppose the word limit is more important, because you can't stop a player, Geroid McKernan's ability influencing a game. He's going to hit a purple patch at some stage. So he's going to have to think very, very carefully who he man marks him. He's also going to think very carefully how he protects that full back line of his. So that's for people listening in, before the game or even in the week after. That's something maybe we can look at pre-hand or maybe reflect on later on in the week.
100%, Kevin. I suppose is now the time for this Antrim team, because they are building very well under Enda McGinley and Stevie O'Neill, and God, Kev, we all know about the success that Enda McGinley and Stevie O'Neill had as footballer. So is now the time for this Antrim team, if they can try to get a win over Cavan today, it'll build serious momentum onto an Ulster semi-final against Donegal or Armagh. So, now does feel like time for this Antrim team?
I don't know if that's now is the time for this Antrim team, because
to make a big stamp, I suppose. Today's an ideal chance under the project under McGinley and Stephen O'Neill.
No, it's not in my opinion, because Antrim are going into this game as favourites. People might laugh at me and that, but it's the first.
Oh, you're right. Everyone's saying Antrim. Yeah.
Antrim is the first. This is the first time, and as long as I can remember, Antrim go into an Ulster Championship game as favourites. They played a league above Cavan. If their home form had been better, then they would have got up from this league. They had 2 defeats out of 4 at home, and that's what ultimately cost them when they look back in this. In terms of getting up the league, I suppose they're on an upward trajectory in terms of coming up from Division 4 and in this first year. There's lots of positivity coming out of the camp. There's 1 or 2 new guys introduced, as I say. Pat Shivers, a guy with a lot of potential. I think he's played McGourty Cup football at the highest level. Young Jamie Grimmon again from the Cargan club in there. Mick Burns obviously coming in for his championship debut. So there is new blood coming in, new guys getting a chance, which again, you have to applaud. The big problem is whoever gets over this game, and this is all due respect to these 2 counties, you're going in then against the juggernaut probably of a Division 1 team in a semi-final. And that's the reality. And, when we talk about Antrim improving, I think 90% of Antrim people at the start of the year would have been really, really happy with staying in Division 3. Bit disappointed in the end that, we didn't get that push out of it. I suppose there's a bit of an issue here for me. And again, I'm not being controversial, but I'm trying to be a reality, truthful about it. Antrim at senior level are performing quite well. And in all credit, they got a very good win in minors last night against Monaghan. But really, our base is very, very thin. We're playing with a guy, Mick McCann, who's 37, 38 in the middle of the field. And look, all due fair play to him, but he's going to have to stop at some time. We're playing with Conor Murray, who's had a lot of injuries. Conor's maybe 33, 34, I think, if I'm right. So them guys haven't got lots in them. Who's coming in to replace them? We haven't had a lot of wins at minors or the 21s over the last number of years. I would say, excuse me, that the club game in Antrim is certainly improving. Gone are the days when St. Galls were dominating. They're not even in the top 5 clubs now. There's, you're talking about Cargan, Cragan, St. Bridget's, Port Glenone, Lavjarg. there's good competitiveness in the Antrim Championship, which is great to see because that brings players on as well. So, the one thing about it is, if a win today for Antrim, yes, it'll give a bit of momentum. And certainly, I think that what they want to do is get a win or two, certainly get a win today, and then look what happens in the Tailteann Cup. Take that seriously and try and see where they go from there. But certainly, if they can build a bit of Cavan, bit of momentum going into the Division 3 next year, and sort of then try and get up from there. But, I'd just be worried about saying that this Antrim team it can go places, because realistically, we haven't got a lot of great base coming up behind it. And that's why there needs to be such a focus on what's happening, between under 10s and under 16s. We need to start building that base so that every year, like Tyrone, like Derry's, like Cavan last night, you're getting a conveyor belt of talent who are always challenging for places. Unfortunately, Antrim, we don't have that.
There we go. Okay, there we go. And I suppose when you're looking into it and you're kind of thinking, right, who can hurt Cavan today? Who are we thinking, Kev? Who are the players that can get Antrim over the line?
Certainly, Mick McCann's influencing around the middle of the park, but moving up front, Conor Murray is, he's been in incredible form. He's kicking 2-3 points. He's the ability to take a man on. He's got an excellent dummy. He's quite an accurate shooter. He's good at creating and bringing other people into the game as well. So Conor will be highly influential for Antrim today. I expect him maybe to line out at wing half forward. Tomas McCann, if he's on form, can be unplayable in days. He's got a lovely low centre of gravity. Again, he likes to take a man on. He can be quite selfish at times, but you know what? He knows where the nets are, as I said before, he can finish. Certainly, if he doesn't start, the impact of Ryan Murray from the bench will be key. Ryan, again, is very similar to Tomas. Very low centre of gravity, very speedy player. He knows where the nets are. So them 3-4 guys, again, whether or not he gets into the game, as I say, he's an unknown for me, is Oran Eastwood. So, let's see what he comes up with. If he starts today, young Jamie Gribben, as I say, is another exciting player. It'll be his debut. There might be some nerves there for him. Excuse me, but again, a player with a lot of potential. So let's see how he goes. So they're the sort of guys, the Antrim sort of wing half forwards and corner forwards are the guys that I'd be most looking to. They're the most dangerous. They'll be the ones that Cavan defenders will be having nightmares over last night.
Super stuff. And so, McGinley, going into this, what are we talking tactics wise? Are you looking at maybe a defensive style from Antrim, like all out attack, or what do we think? Because we do know the power of Gerald McCarron and Paddy Lynch when they do get going. So kind of tactics wise, Kevin, what are we thinking?
I think not just because it's Aidan McGinley and Stephen O'Neill managing Antrim. I think what they need to do is look to their former teammate and former coach Mickey Harden and Gavin Devlin and their tactics in Croke Park with Louth. I think Cavan's big threat is on the 40 upwards, and I think Antrim have an excellent. They have the personnel to hit Cavan on the break. They have speedy wing forwards, they have speedy inside forwards, and I think that if they can clog up that axis of McKiernan, of Lynch, of getting quick ball into the forward line, of getting men behind the ball, 2 or 3 men in around the tackle, turning over Cavan early, and then hitting them on the break. Patrick McBride's another guy, great fitness, can get up and down the park, can take a score maybe from wing half back. I think Antrim have the personnel to play that system. So for me, early on, possibly conceding the kick to Cavan at the back, dropping back to the 50, in around halfway, and trying to sort of starve that influence of Geroid McKiernan on the game, making him come out around 50, 60 yards to pick up the ball, 2 or 3 men sitting in front of maybe 1 or 2 men sitting in front of the full forward line, turning over the ball, and the ability to hit quickly on the break. The other option I would say to you is, if Rory McCann's quite a big lad, and so is Pat Shivers, depending on which one of them plays. If one of them can set up for Antrim and a quick ball into them with runners off them, then that counter attack could work very well for Antrim. So my thinking would be that my tactic would be all around how we stop McKiernan and Lynch, how we stop getting that quick ball in, and for me, that's a tactic I'd be adopting as a counter attack tactic today, similar to what Louth played in Croke Park a couple of weeks back.
This is where it gets interesting. General prediction before we jump off and get ready for the game.
I would like to say Antrim, and I would like to think that Antrim will bring a ferocious intensity in the first 10-15 minutes, given all that's happened outside of the large rectangle in terms of the ground and the timing of the game and I suppose the boardroom nonsense that went on. I think Antrim have the personnel. My big problem is I'd be quite wary of Antrim at the back. And it might be cliche to say, I think the first 10-15 minutes of this game are going to be absolutely crucial. If Cavan can get off to a good start, I don't know if Antrim tactically can set up to chase this game. If Cavan get off the 2-3 point lead, then it's going to be difficult to see Antrim get in that game. So for me, it's about Antrim coming out at the beginning, to have that ferocious intensity, to hit the front early, to get them little turnovers, when Cavan are going forward, getting men behind the ball, getting somebody over carried, dispossessing a guy, blocking down a guy, all of that sort of stuff early for Antrim will give the crowd a bit of a buzz. The other factor probably mentioned into this is quite a weird ground to play in. It's not a typical inter-county ground in any way. It's a very tight pitch. I mean, not because we've all seen it on social media last night, Rory Cavan scoring that unbelievable sideline point. But I would expect McCann and Conor Murray and indeed Groyd McKiernan to be hitting over sidelines here today for fun, for absolutely fun. It's a very narrow pitch. One of the goals, the West Rock, the Ballymurphy end, if you want to put it that way, which is the far goal away from the pavilion or the changing areas, is quite a difficult goal to shoot into. There's nothing really in behind the goal. There's no sort of catch net or anything like that. So it can be quite a hard goal to shoot into. So it might take a bit of getting used to for these Cavan boys, in terms of how tight the ground is, how small the pitch is, and that could suit Antrim in that defensive setup because there won't be a lot of room for forwards to roam about today.
There we go. Kevin, I cannot wait. The nerves are kicking in. I couldn't even sleep last night, so I don't know about you.
No, I'm not nervous. I'm actually looking forward. I'm actually looking forward to the game because, say, for the first time ever, when you're looking from an Antrim perspective, it's the first time I would say in 20 odd years that Antrim have been favourites for any Ulster Championship game. So you would just hope that they can produce the goods on the day. They're playing at a higher level in the league. They've been very competitive in all of their games this year. And the big issue is, can they make that home advantage count? And I think we're about to go off air and we'll come back on at half time, but I think that is a big unknown in this game, how Cavan adapted this ground, and we can maybe talk about that at half time. So look, there's a lot of unknowns here as we come into it, but if Antrim can produce in that first 10 minutes, we'll see at half time. We could be talking about Antrim winning today, and I think realistically this first 10-15 minutes is going to be key at the outcome of this game.
There we go. Kevin, absolute pleasure. Join us at halftime for our comments. Really looking forward to the game. And it's Cavan v Antrim. It's 2 p.m. It's in Carrigan Park. Kevin, thanks a million.
Cheers. Enjoy.
Okay, you're very welcome back. It's halftime in the Cavan Antrim game. Kevin, what's your thoughts?
Very disappointing game all around, John, from both perspectives. Hasn't really a championship feel to it. First and foremost, goes in Carrigan Park looking in great shape. The pitch looks in great shape. So, from that perspective, congratulations to everybody involved in that. But I think that's about the only positive comment we can make from an Antrim perspective. Absolutely and utterly dire. I think, in fairness to Enda McGinley and Stephen O'Neill, Sean Kelly, they've got their tactics what people want them to be. Maybe get behind the ball, concede the kick out, and then try and turn over Cavan, but their defence has been absolutely poor at this. From a Cavan point of view, look, this game should be over, John. It should be over. I count Cavan should have scored 1-6 inside the first 14 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And these are not talking about half chances. These are chances right in front of goal. This is the keeper making a point blank save when, unfortunately, again, we spoke before the match about Conor Madden not passing the ball in the National League final. Again, this was another simple square ball from an opportunity that should have been in the back of the net. Cavan will be really, really disappointed. They're playing against what seems to be a bit of a wind into the non-shooting end, and they've given up so many bad options, so many bad chances. Antrim, absolutely and utterly pathetic. That's the only word I can use, pathetic, for 20 minutes. There's a graveyard to the right-hand side of the shooting goal, the city cemetery as it's known in Belfast, and there was more life in that cemetery than there was in Antrim for the first 20 minutes. They got the first shot on 14 minutes. Conor Murray dared to have a shot that went wide. His brother Ryan had one on 19 minutes, and then in 21 minutes it went wide. And eventually we get our first score then. I have to say, from an Antrim perspective, it's been diabolical in certain ways, which I'll come to in a second. But the one bright light, the only person keeping Antrim in this match is the industry, the work rate, the willingness of Ryan Murray. As I said to you, when we were on pre-game, Ryan was away in Dubai for 3 weeks. Maybe we should fly the whole team out for 3 weeks because he's been absolutely and utterly brilliant. I see that it looks as if Luke Fortune has moved over to Markham. Luke Fortune seemed to have teamed up against Tomas McCann at the start of the game. So, it seems to have gone that way. But Cavan should be well out of sight here. There's no doubts about it. If Cavan lose this game, people will be scratching their heads. Again, from an Antrim point of view, their defence has been non-existent. I believe, and I'm not just saying this because he's my own clubmate, Owen McCabe, who's playing number 2 from Antrim, is up against James Smith. James Smith has won 7 or 8 balls inside without a hand being touched on him. The physical difference in there is massive. Antrim just don't seem to know how to play this sweeper. They have got their matchups wrong totally at the back. Peter Healy's a very good player. I think he won a couple of Sigersons with UCD back in the day, but Patrick Lynch is definitely getting the better of him in there, and there needs to be possibly a change in there. I'm not too sure what they're going to do. Geroid McKiernan hasn't been at his overall best, but you know what? James Lavery's not fit for him at the minute. Once or twice McKiernan has been on the potential. He's opened up a couple of chances. He should have scored 1 or 2 himself. He just looks so dangerous. And the one thing from an Antrim perspective, I'm not trying to be down about this because Antrim have been the better team in the last 10 minutes of the second half. But when you look at, the first half, when you look at the potential Cavan have in there, maybe throwing Thomas Galligan in or throwing Geroid McKiernan in or even leaving Patrick Lynch in the second half with that wind, I would fear for Antrim a bit. So, it's been a poor first half for both teams. And do you know what's really dogged me, John? There was no cut and thrust about this game. It's so lethargic, it's being played in a beautiful day. At times the Cavan number 13, Cormac, if you remember.
Damien Riley's son.
Yeah, he's had so much time in the ball. It's been unbelievable at times. Nobody near him, nobody within a country mile of him. So it's just being played so lethargically, and it just doesn't have that cut and thrust of the championship about it.
100%, and obviously the first couple of minutes as well, we did miss a lot of opportunities. Cormac did have a very good goal chance, and we have been kicking a lot of wides and a couple of balls dropped short. So what we spoke about before the game, Kevin, it's really coming through once again.
Yeah, well, the issue here for me is quite simple, and it's back to the point of what I said to you before the match about Conor Morna. Players at the top level make the right decisions. If we watch the actual clip coming away from Cavan for a second into Antrim, Mick McCann's in for goal, bad hand pass. The decision there for that hand pass, if Mick McCann gets the right hand pass, it's a stonewall goal chance for Antrim. At this level, you've got to make the right decisions at the right time, and that's what defines players. We go back to the Ireland final. I'm going back a couple of years ago. Owen Mulligan gets the ball. He's in near goal. What's he do? He backs into his man. He lays it off to Peter Canavan, who slides it into the net. You pick the right options at the right times. And Cavan have been getting themselves into very, very good positions, but taking the wrong options. Maybe once or twice shooting under pressure, shooting into the goalkeeper's hands. It's really, that's thing that, for want of a better word, it really pisses me off. So these sort of things are are, hard to take from a Cavan perspective, because Cavan, for that first 20 minutes, they owned this game. They were dictatorship in this game, and they haven't taken advantage of it. So, from a Cavan perspective, again, it comes back to that taking the right options. And for me, the only player really in Cavan at the minute, 90% of the time taking the right options, is Lynch, and he's really on his game. He looks so, again, for want of a better word, he's shit hot today, and they need to expose him more and more.
And just to kind of finish up, Antrim shooting at the end, they did get some good points just to finish off the first half. So these are very much in it, Kev.
Yeah, well, if you offered Antrim where they are now after 19 or 20 minutes, they'd have taken it. But, that is a shooting goal, as I said to you before the match. This is a very narrow ground. It's a very difficult shooting goal, one end to the other goal. So, I expect that to be worth a point or two to Cavan in the second half. Hopefully, Antrim didn't want half time to come in this game. There's no doubts about it. They didn't want half time to come. So, first 10 minutes of the second half is going to be key. Antrim didn't get out of the blocks, and they have to in this half. They have to, or else they're gone. I would fully expect Geroid McKiernan to grow into this game more and more. Maybe Galligan to come into it a wee bit more, but Martin Riley to come on, maybe Thomas Edward O'Donoghue. So I still, at this point,
Ted's not involved today. He's on the bench.
He's not. Sorry, he's not. So, I still have to say that at this stage, I do fancy Cavan, unfortunately.
There we go. Kev, I'll let you back to it, and tune in after the game, folks. Thanks, Kev.
Okay, cheers, bye.
Full-time Carrigan Park, Cavan 120, Antrim 10 points. Kevin McGourty, your after-match reaction?
Totally downplayed, John. That was hugely embarrassing in the second half. We spoke at halftime about possibly Antrim having the best of the last 10 minutes in the first half. It was nip and tug. I think we went in a point down, and then all of a sudden Antrim get the first point of the second half. And again, that man, Geroid McKiernan, steps up. Bit of leadership. Antrim kicked a couple of points. Cavan kicked a couple of points in a row. Conor Madden was to the fore in that period too, so give him credit where it's due. But John, in the second half, it was total men against boys. I called it at halftime. I just thought Cavan had this game wrapped up. Antrim, I don't know what to say. I really don't. It's the performance overall. If Antrim hadn't had Ryan Murray, and indeed in patches today Conor Murray, it would have been frightening to think what scoreline here. In fact, probably as a Cavan man yourself, and Cavan people listening to this in the aftermath, Cavan could have kicked 320 today. Could have. And that, Cavan will need to improve on that for the next day. But on the other perspective, from an Antrim perspective, it just shows our defensive setup and how poor we were today. Such high hopes growing into the game. For the first time, as I think Oisin McConville said it in commentary, maybe 14, 15 years, that he has been looking at the Ulster game as maybe a pundit or whatever else, that Antrim were favourites, and just didn't show up today. Just didn't show up.
Yeah, no, it kind of looked like that, and then Cavan did kind of coast home to victory. And I suppose what impressed you about Cavan in the second half was it just kind of letting the shackles off. And I know Mick McCann got a second yellow, got sent off. Maybe it was a bit harsh, but we kind of put the foot to the pedal. Obviously, Geroid McKiernan's goal with about 10 minutes to go. Lovely finish, and that's all she wrote, Kev.
Yeah, well, let's forget about Mick McCann's sent off for the minute. For the first maybe 10, 12 minutes of the second half, I don't get the point. What impressed me was Cavan's response. I think they kicked 0-4, 0-5 without reply. At one stage, I think it was 0-12 or 0-13 to 8 points. So it was the response that impressed me about Cavan. When they're in the trenches, they come up with it. What else impressed me? Obviously McKiernan stepping up to the mark. He was in and out of the game in patches in the first half. Things maybe just didn't go right for him. There was a chance he had in the first half. He got turned over down near the West Rock end, the Antrim goals, and it ended up in an Antrim point. He didn't let that get him down. He was still his work rate was pretty good. I think the major thing that Cavan supporters can take away is Patrick Lynch is a serious player. Peter Healy's no fool, don't get me wrong. I still think that Antrim should have moved. Look, I'll come to talk about Antrim technically on the line in a minute, but, Peter Healy, he's not a bad footballer at all, but Lynch was just on fire today. He was really, really good. his frees were okay. He missed the first free in the game, but after that he was deadly accurate. His contribution from play was excellent as well. He was really, really lively. So, Cavan supporters will look at that. Madden stepped up when it was an even game at 7-7. That was really good. What will worry Cavan supporters is that so many chances, and again, we talked about this at halftime and before the game, they took wrong options all the time. The other thing that would, from a positive point of view as well, is Martin Riley's contribution. We spoke about this
brilliant.
before the game. When he came on, his work rate, his energy, his willingness to chase dead balls, his willingness to tackle. I think he got 0-2 in the end. And such a good player. Such a good attitude. So that's
a goal too.
Yeah. So I mean, really, really, what a ball, what a sideline kick. Great kick pass. So that's a real positive for them. I said to you as an aside when we started this conversation this morning before the game, let's look at Raymond Gallagher's kick. He only got one today, and in fairness to him, he knocked it over the bar. So look, you have to start somewhere, and that was great for him. And Cavan defence generally okay. Ram Murray wasn't. Ram Murray was the only real threat that Antrim had, but Tomas McCann neutralised him. Jamie Gribben, okay, scored a point later on when he came onto the pitch after about 10-12 minutes from Rory McCann. He wasn't really in the game. So Cavan defence would be pretty happy. I can't note a save really Raymond Gallagher had to make. So a lot of things from an Antrim perspective. From a Cavan perspective at the back, very, very happy with. Still say to you that Thomas Gallagher's sort of coasting through games a wee bit. Need to see a wee bit more from him. Cormac Riley, is it the number 13? Thought he was.
Damien Riley's son, yeah.
Yeah, really impressive in certain patches of the game. He drops deep onto the 40, picks up ball. I think his option taking can be a wee bit better, but again, got on plenty of ball today. But look, Cavan supporters go down the road tonight. They'll be overly happy, but they haven't played against much. Antrim were as bad as I've seen them in 20 years today.
Yeah, there you go. And I know we're against the clock, Kev, but a quick synopsis on the Antrim performance and where to go in the Falcon Cup.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to lift a team like that after today. They had a really decent league, as we said beforehand. Maybe had a shout of getting up. Came in with really high hopes today. Expect them for a first big 10-15 minutes to put in a bit of hits, maybe one or two blocks, maybe one or two turnovers. It was Cavan that set the pace. Antrim were toothless in that period of time. And I suppose when you come back to look at a game like that, when you get that opportunity, or when you're getting into a game with a psychological momentum, you have to carry that into the first 15-20 minutes. In the first quarter of the game, in the first 20 minutes of the game, first 25 minutes of the game, Antrim scored 2 points. And that tells its own story, John. And inter-county football, even at club football, if you're a manager, you want to be turned over the scoreboard every 4 or 5 minutes. Antrim had 2 shots inside 16 minutes of the game with the wind. Their tactics were all wrong. They were trying to kick long ball into Orrin Eastwood. God help Orrin, he's not physical, big size. Personally, I don't think he's an inter-county footballer, but that's up to others to judge. Maybe they could have put Conor Murray in there. Maybe they should have had the running game a wee bit more. Ram Murray kept them in the game in the first half. They had a real good purple patch between maybe the 23rd minute and half-time. They didn't really want to have half-time coming. Half-time came out of the blocks in the second half, got that free, and then they really died from there. Cavan kicked the next 3-4 points. Antrim made a few subs. What I would be really disappointed in the Antrim management is not their tactics, because I think they had to play that game where they sat back, invited Cavan onto them and tried to bottle up that space that Groyd, McKiernan or Lynch had. The problem is they didn't have the players, the personnel to do it. These guys, and this is absolutely no disrespect to them because they're trying their best, but these guys aren't in the planet. They don't have the mindset. They don't have the ability to play that game where they're a sweeper or where they're, you know, marking a guy, you know, the Healy's of this world, the James Lavery's of this world, the McAleeses. They're not good enough. And that's the simple fact of the matter. And we've seen that today. And, you know, when we look at the game in the round, Antrim were in the game 5 minutes after half time. And at that stage, they didn't kick on. Their leaders, maybe Mick McCann, Tomas wasn't in the game today. You know, didn't really stand up, and Geroid McKiernan did, Lynch did, Moyna did, Conor Madden did at that stage. You know, so that was the difference, and that just turned it then.
Probably a rhetorical question, Kev, but your man of the match.
Yeah, it'd have to be Lynch all day long. I thought, look, honourable mention to Ryan Murray. I said to you pre-hand, I know Ryan quite well through different connections, and he was in Dubai for 3 weeks. And, you know, he came out today and he was explosive. He was really good, low centre of gravity. He wanted to take his man on. He wanted to be ambitious. He wanted to fight for the ball. He hit a couple of shots wide early on, but look, he got over that, and Ryan really led the fight for Antrim. Conor, his brother, wasn't too far behind him. But really, when we're looking at the standout performers, Lynch was the one guy that Antrim couldn't put a fire out in. He was unstoppable today. Again, Geroid McKiernan and Patches was really, really good. So, you know, Madden, when the game was in the Mountain Park, came up with 2 points. So, yeah, you're looking at them sort of guys, but Lynch probably the standout player today. And by the way, you know, you always temper a good performance with the fact is he missed 3 or 4 shots towards the end. He got lazy, and, you know, if he can work on that for the next day, you know, he's a really good player. Cavan people are probably going down the road buzzing about him, and rightly so.
There you go. Kevin McGourty, thanks a million for joining me today. That's all the match reaction from Antrim, and this podcast will be up during the week. So, Kevin McGourty, thanks a million. Have a great Saturday, and hope the points go down well, because you'll need them.
Cheers, John. Good luck.
Cheers, sir. Cheers, sir.
Right.